This is Tim, and this is going to be an impromptu video that I didn't really plan on making. At the last minute, I decided to sign up for the D&D Next playtest, and to see what kind of files they had, what they were, putting out. I have talked in the past about how I like the idea of it being a more modular game with, optional rules tacked on, and whether that is actually what's going to happen or not is up for debate. All I know now is I got some files to look at, and I wanted to kind of go through them and just not really review them or whatever, but just the thoughts that popped in my head when I was looking over the files, things I liked, and things I'm not so sure on, but that's kind of what a playtest is about, to see, what you think about the rules and how they handle things. The one thing that's kind of neat that I really didn't expect is that as I was reading through it, there wasn't anything that I utterly disliked, and I kind of expected that to be there. So call me pleasantly, surprised or pleased. But I wanted to just talk about a little bit of things that were in there. One of the things I liked is that you don't need miniatures. You can go, just theater of the mind instead. Things aren't measured in squares. They're measured in feet. I like that. Saving throws are reactive stat checks. Give me a dex check, or whatever. Stats are mostly 1 to 20, with higher being possible. You can move before and after you make an attack. Coup de grace is done a little bit more deadly, it seems. But that's kind of a rule I've always been pretty deadly about. If you have someone laying on the ground, they're dead if you want to run up and cut their throats. So I guess I do it a little bit more deadlier than the playtest does. There's a lot of talking about giving more power to the GM or the DM, such as improvising things in combat for how to handle them. 1's an auto miss, 20's an auto hit, and instead of critical damage, you just do max damage. I believe that's from 4th edition, but I'm not very familiar with that game. Things like at 0 hit points, you're dying, and then you make a death saving throw, and I believe that would be Constitution, but I'm not sure. And that you would make that save once a round with a DC of 10, or you take a D6 of damage, which I kind of like that. That seems like, I don't know, it's a little bit more deadly. And if you make 3 of those checks, then you stabilize. You don't lose anymore. You don't have to roll that D6 anymore. I thought this was a pretty elegant solution to armor check penalties instead of doing the math. Armor, your AC is basically plus dex if you're wearing armor for the light stuff, and for the heavy stuff, you only get half of your dex for your armor class. So I thought that was pretty cool. And there's a thing about advantages and disadvantages, which I don't dislike, and I think the more I think about it, the more I like it. It's a way of, let's say you have, instead of giving a +2 bonus or something, you would say, okay, you have the advantage on this check or whatever. Let's say you have the high ground. Okay, you would have the advantage. And what that would mean is you would roll 2 d20s and take the higher result. Now let's say that let's flip that around. Let's say that your target was on the high ground and you would try and attack them, then maybe you would have the disadvantage. So then you would roll 2 d20 and take the lowest. And at first I wasn't really sure what to think of that. I was like, wow. And then it made me think of the Barbarians Lemuria way, like if you have, there's certain things in that game where you would roll 3d6 and drop the lowest, or roll 3d6 and drop the highest. So that kind of made me think of that, and I kind of like that mechanic too. So it's growing on me. I think in the end it's gonna win out. I think it's a pretty elegant way of reducing the level of math in the game. So there's less plus modifiers, and it's more looking down and seeing what's on the dice, which is another reason why I would like World of Darkness games. You just roll and look for the numbers or above. So again, it made me think of that a little bit. Weapon damage is variable, like I kind of expected it to be. You can cast spells in and out of combat. There are cantrips or risings, arcane or divine. There's fancy and magic, and there are rituals. Some people might not like the fancy and magic, but it's a standard. I think that's there so the people that they're trying to bring back into the fold, like me, they're more comfortable with that. And rituals is a way of doing spells over time, with more components and such. Turn Undead isn't a class ability anymore; it's a spell, and Lamentations of the Flame Princess does that, and I like that when James Raggi did it. So I think that's a good change. Cure Light Wounds, for instance, is a D8 plus magic stat instead of level. I don't know if I really have a real good feeling on what's better, but I mean, it was just a different change. And these are mostly the things that I like. Spells seem flexible and yet are pretty straightforward. So there's a little bit more leeway there for the players and the GM to kind of hash things out, which I think is good. There's a lot of talk about giving more power back to the GMs to handle things, not necessarily binding him to the rule of law. And again, some people might like those more rules in there, but I like to have more flexible rules so I can handle what's going on. One of the changes I've noticed is that there doesn't seem to be skills in the playtest rules. It's more stat checks, and it'd be d20 plus your stat modifier. And then if you're going up against somebody else, you would both do a stat check, and whoever would be the highest. Those are called contests. And I think that was pretty elegant. I'm more of the OSR guy where I like to roll under stat, but I think this is it fits with what they're trying to do, and you basically just set the DC, the difficulty class, and I don't know, that's growing on me too. Let's see here. And what I talked about the advantage and disadvantage with the 2d20, and GMs can give you the advantage or give a disadvantage, and if you have one of each, then they cancel each other out. And I think that's pretty cool. It's really kind of growing on me. At first I was like, that's kind of weird, but it's growing on me. I think it's neat. There's a section in the rules about ignoring the dice and just letting things, happen at the table, like role playing, and don't really bring the dice out for everything if you don't have to. Perception checks are wisdom checks, and again, that would just be plus d20 plus modifier. And they talk a little bit about role playing and versus ROLL playing, and how sometimes it's best not to just you don't have to bring out the dice. You just let the characters play and respect how people play. Some people like to go, like me, I'm like a method actor, I'll get really involved in character, and other people like to just describe what their characters do. And as a GM, you need to be able to support both types of players. Now, these are some of the things I'm not sure of, but they aren't really dislikes either. Like I said, that advantage-disadvantage thing with the 2d20 is, I think in the end it's going to win out, and I'm really going to like it, but it's just new, and I'm not sure. Like, for instance, shooting into combat puts your character at a disadvantage. And I think that's kind of like an elegant way to do that. Because shooting into combat has, people have different takes on that. Some people like to be more deadly, other people like to be more safe. I don't know, it's a different way of doing it, so I'm not really sure. Hit points seem to be inflated. Like at first level, you have your con stat plus a dice roll, depending on what class you have. And then as you go up in levels, I'm not really sure about this, you can either get your con modifier or your dice roll, and whatever is higher, that's what you keep. So if like you're a D8 hit dice, and you roll like a 1, you would take your con modifier if it was like a +2. So again, I'm not really sure about that. It's a little bit different, but it's something that that's what playtest is for. See if you like it. I prefer side initiative, but again, I'm more of an OSR guy, and there's individual initiative in the rules. You are dead at negative con plus your level, and depending on how deadly you like to run your games, this could be negative. That's why I have it in the not sure area. I don't know if you're gonna if you're high level and you have a high con. I mean, it kind of gets ridiculous. I think at some point, like, okay, I'm at negative 28 hit points and I'm still alive. I don't know. That's kind of weird. There's other things in here too about the short rest and the long rest. The long rest, it would be like your normal resting for a night, except in the version of the rules here, you get all of your hit points back, not just like D3 or a heal check or something. So I mean, that's pretty powerful to be able to rest a night and get all your hit points back. So That might even be in the dislike for me. I'm not real comfortable with that. There's also the short rest, which is it kind of reminds me of how Conan the Barbarian did things. You know, he would, especially in the novels, he would, go kick some ass, and then he would, drink some wine, shake it off, and then he'd be able to, regain some of his strength or whatever. So I think that's what that's coming from, and I believe that is like a healing surge from 4th edition, but I'm not very familiar with those rules, so don't hold me to that. Your spell attacks, so like offensive spells, seem to be using an int or wisdom modifier to the roll, and that is depending on your class, obviously. So again, these are things I'm not sure of. The one thing that really kind of made me think is that nothing really jumped out at me that I went, ooh, I didn't have that reaction, so that's a pretty good thing. My optimism seems like it's bearing fruit, which is good. I have pretty much just skimmed or read over most of the material. I haven't really delved into it deeply because Wes has been crying. He's actually sleeping in the back bedroom. Yay! So I was able to make this video. So feel free to leave your comments below if you have any opinions on these things. Maybe you like having more hit points. Maybe you like a game that's less deadly, so maybe that's a good change for you. And as the rules suggest, and as I've always said, if you don't like a rule when the game officially comes out, you can change it. But now you can actually give feedback and say, I don't really like this, or I like that a lot. But overall, I like the way the rules have been shaped. There's some new mechanics and new ways of doing things, but at the same time, they're kind of the same as I would think the game has had for a while. Like, there's still going to be saving throws, they're just done a little bit differently. Maybe if you don't like saving throws based on stat, that might be something that bothers you, but like in my Novus game that I have been playtesting lately, that's now in print, I'll put a link below, they also do saving throws by stat, so, I liked it when I saw it there, so I'm liking it here too. But yeah, leave comments below, maybe you have different opinions. Alright, thanks guys, and I'm excited to see where this is going to go.